we're going to get started. Laura Barnard is our guest today. And if you don't know who Laura is, she is an absolute goddess in the PMO world. She's a complete ball of energy, an inspiration to us all. And there's a whole bunch of us, right, who are kind of in a tribe who are really passionate about helping PMO leaders be more effective, have more of an impact on their lives, their careers, the organizations they work on. And Laura is right at the center of that tribe, right? If the tribe has a chief, Laura is the chief. And she took the bone out of her nose today so that we could be presentable on Zoom. So Laura is absolutely chief. PMO Global Alliance named her as the Influencer of the Year last year. As she said, she highlighted and headlined at a couple of the conferences over here last year, and she's just incredible. It was bizarre walking around this conference with Laura, and literally groupies were running up and taking selfies, and they'd be looking at me going, yeah, who are you?
Oh, come on. Well, it was pretty cool when I got to meet some people that have been in our community for a long time and get to meet them in person. And some people had some really nice things to say about me. So it just felt really good because, Stuart, you know that my heart and soul is with the people on this webinar today. You all are my people, and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and the shoes I wore that you're all wearing now in just a moment.
And that's very much the spirit of this. It's a spirit of giving, learning, sharing, and Laura has a lot to get through today, a lot of really impactful, insightful stuff. So I am going to break with tradition, and I'm going to try and keep my mouth shut. It probably won't work, but I will try and keep my mouth shut and just let Laura go. So Laura, I'm going to hand over to you. I will man the chat. So if you have questions or comments, or you want to throw something in or clarify something, let me know. And if it's appropriate and if it's fits in with the flow, I will interject so that Laura can address it. So keep your fingers on keyboards. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you. And I will definitely try to make sure that there's some time to answer your questions. Please feel free to ask your questions as we're going through this, but note that there will be better times to answer them, a little bit later in the program and definitely at the end. And that's because some of the things that I'm going to say today are going to ruffle a few feathers, and there's a reason for that, right? So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of some things that have changed in this space, the role that each of you have, and I don't think many of you realize how very important you are to the futures of your organizations. You are it, baby. And I'm going to show you exactly how I've come to that conclusion. I'm going to show you the role that you can play and how to help you earn your seat at the table in closing the strategy to execution gap. And you're even going to learn why it's not closed with the 800 books out there and all the articles and all the stuff on closing the gap. I'm going to show you why they're struggling to close it and why you're the secret to the success of organizations being able to deliver on your strategy. So please do me a favor and give me your undivided attention. And here's why, because we're going to be talking about some things today like ROI, return on investment. And if you're here, by the way, nobody can multitask. It's a joke, and we'll talk about that more later. If you're here, let's get the most out of this time together. So give me your time and attention. I'm going to go quickly, but I'm also going to give you some really great insights. So get your notepad ready. I'm going to give you tons of things that you can take away and go take action on right now to start making a difference, elevating your role in the organization and helping your business leaders close the gap between strategy and execution. So if you are new to me, which some of you are, like Stuart mentioned, I was named the top global influencer of the year, a top global PMO influencer of the year by the PMO Global Alliance in 2021. I guess 2022 wore that crown. And that's really a testament to all of you PMO leaders, because everything I do for you to help support you in the tough role that you're in. And help support you carry the heavy burden that you actually carry around every day. I was in your shoes for 15 years, building PMOs, business transformation organizations, and worked my way up from 1999, having no idea what I was doing the first time I built a PMO, to an executive level position in a business transformation organization, run shared services, PMOs, enterprise PMOs for 15 years. And I had to learn a lot of the things the hard way. And I'm going to share a little bit of that experience with you because I think it resonates with a lot of the experience that some of you are in now. And along the way, I learned a lot of things. And I found myself saying to people in this community when I would speak on stages or have a chance to talk to a new PMO leader, and I'd say, no, don't do this instead. And here's why. And I said that again and again and again. And I actually found myself saying, gosh, I really wish I had me when I was you. I really wish I had someone that would tell me all these things, share all the secrets, and help make it easier for me to do this hard work that we have to do in PMOs. And that's where PMO strategy started. I had no intentions of ever, I wanted to be, some, executive in corporate. That was it. That was my plan. And I didn't have a plan to start PMO strategies, but what I found was that a lot of the things that were out there were not helping PMO leaders do the kind of thing that they needed to do. So we've created some really unique programs, which I'll give you a little glimpse into today, that are changing the game for PMO leaders around the world, truly around the world. You also should check out the PMO Strategies podcast. This is free. There's almost 200 episodes on there. Stuart's been on there. We're talking about all things specifically PMO. And a lot of what you'll hear there is different than the typical advice, which we'll talk about in a minute. This image you see here on the left is the image on that podcast. So it's very easy to find. And I'm pretty sure if you Google PMO, it shows up in the podcast right on the first page. So you'll see that picture. You'll know it's the right one. Definitely hit subscribe, download the episodes so that they're with you no matter where your high impact journey takes you. I pour my heart and soul into making sure that you have everything you need to be successful, because I was in your shoes and I know just how hard it can be. We also host the PMO Impact Summit, the world's largest PMO conference. I was going to say virtual, but it's just the largest PMO conference in the world, specifically focused on supporting PMO leaders and strategy delivery leaders with an emphasis on making a bigger impact in your organizations. So that's a little bit about me. And now let's talk about you, because that's what we're actually all here to do. So I'm going to help you get laser focused on exactly what it takes to build a PMO or other strategy delivery team. Some of you call it PMO, some might call it strategy delivery office, business transformation. I'm going to help you build the PMO that your organization needs to thrive, and show you what you'll need to do to drive undeniable business value for your organization quickly. And it's probably not in the places you've been told to spend most of your time. And this applies even if you're just getting started. We have people that have never done this before, and they come to us and like, yeah, but will that work for me? Absolutely everything I'm telling you will work for you, whether this is your first time or your 10th time building and running a PMO. You're going to learn some things today that I think will be helpful. So for us to start, I think we need to start at the top. We need to start with where a lot of the challenges actually originate with the organizations that we're working in. No matter where you've been as a PMO leader over the last many years, it's been pretty tough for a lot of you. In fact, not just the organization and the business leaders, but PMO leaders found that they had to pivot and shift, and their role significantly changed overnight. When the COVID-19 global pandemic first became a global pandemic, organizations were forced to change how they did things overnight. All the things they didn't think they could ever do somehow magically happened. For many of you, it was because of your influence and your help, and you had a seat at the table, helping to answer the tough business questions business leaders had to answer when they were forced to change, when they were faced with undeniable change that they had to make. Others of you found yourselves on the outside looking in. You found yourself in a place where you weren't actually with a seat at the table, and you watched as your organization made really big business decisions that you could have facilitated, supported, and enabled. And so this meant for some of you, you had this great seat at the table, and for others, you weren't a part of the conversation at all. But here's the thing. For organizations to thrive now and into the future, they're going to need your help, because the only constant, and I remember years ago saying, the only constant is change. Well, guess what, baby? It's happening even faster than ever before. Every organization is going to be forced to transform, some of them overnight. 6 months ago, were any of you talking about ChatGPT? And now it's literally changing the way people are making decisions, getting information, and organizing work they do. Businesses are using it for all kinds of creative things, so much so that the servers can't even handle the load, and you have to get on a wait list just to get access to the platform. And this is not the last disruptor. There are going to be so many disruptors like this that are going to have organizations having to rethink how they face the countless obstacles and challenges and opportunities that are going to be presented to them. Transformation is going to become the norm. I have a client that yesterday met with me, it's actually 2 days ago, met with me and said, okay, we had all of this work that we were going to do, and our executives just decided that we are going to drop everything. That's what they think. Now we're going to have to make sure they actually do drop everything and work on this #1 priority initiative for the organization. We're going to do something that should take 1.5 years in 3 months. That's the goal. And I said, okay, so how important is this to compare to everything else? This is the most important thing for the organization. So so what we're teaching them is how to reorganize and make it the actual most important thing in the organization. Because as many of you know, they'll say that, and then they'll keep working on all the projects, and then none of it's going to get done. So we have to help them understand, and this is Stuart's area of expertise, what prioritization actually means. So I'll walk you through some things you can do to help them when you are facing a situation like that. But the bottom line is, for organizations to thrive now and into the future, the one thing that we know for sure is that they must figure out how to better align strategy, delivery, and results. That's what they need. And that's where you come in, because your ability to understand where and how you can help your organization thrive amidst this constant environment of change is going to be the secret to your success. So what does that look like? What does that actually mean? Let's talk about what's happening in many organizations today that will prevent them from being successful, prevent them from thriving in the future, and what the typical situation looks like right now. We'll start with the real world, and then we'll talk about how we can actually support changing it. When we look at the executive's perspective, here's the kind of things that we hear about their ability to successfully execute. 40% of executives say that enterprise accountability and leadership are not aligned on strategic execution. So the leaders in the organization are not aligned to the strategy. Look for the opportunities in what I'm telling you here, and then I'll help you figure out how to apply those opportunities in each of your organizations. Gets even worse. 60% of organizations, and I know this resonates a lot with you, so put it in the chat if this sounds familiar. 60% of organizations don't actually link their budgets to the corporate strategy. So strategy is defined in one place, and somewhere else in the organization, the budget and the projects are defined. And then we wonder why we can't deliver on any of our strategy. It's because nobody's being incentivized, no work is being put into it directly, and we don't have any alignment between the dollars and the strategic goals. And business leaders will tell you, and I think it's actually worse, these are the only ones that will admit it, and the next statistic will confirm that. 61% of executives say that they struggle to bridge the gap between strategy formulation and implementation. And what do they do when they have this problem? They look to us and they say, why aren't you getting it done? And here is the worst statistic of all. Harvard Business Review says that 95% of the typical workforce does not understand their company's strategy. 95%. I go in and talk to executives, and they ask me to come in because they want us to fix project management, or they need a PMO, or things they can't get their strategy delivered. And then when I talk to their teams about aligning their work to the strategy, do you know what they say to me? What strategy? What strategy? Nobody actually knows what the strategy is. And this statistic says that, proves that. Harvard Business Review asked people at all levels in the workforce, and most of them don't know. And I would challenge all of you listening today, do you know? Do you actually know what the organization strategy is? Because what's happening is that organizations are failing. They're not thriving. They're barely surviving because they have not figured out how to close that gap. But the problem is they're looking in all the wrong places. And that's why they can't close the gap. Because, they think the problem is in implementation. So what happens? This is where we get called in. This is what they see when they look to the implementation of their strategy and it's failing. Project managers are constantly to blame. 40 to 60% of projects are considered failing to meet their business and quality goals. 86% of practitioners report, and I want to hear in the chat, how many of you think you have a resource? No, you have a resource management problem. We don't have enough resources. 86% of project people will say they don't have enough resources to meet the project demands. We're going to come back to that one because that's a pretty important one. 71% of projects are not well aligned with strategic business priorities. Projects are not tied to strategy. And 50% of project leaders aren't using what they know about strategy, if anything, to drive prioritization. This is a big problem. I think this number is actually the 50% that we're willing to admit it. I think this is the 50% willing to admit the truth. I think it's far worse than that because, as Harvard Business Review said, 95% of the typical workforce does not understand the strategy. So I know they're not using strategic insights to drive prioritization. This is a huge problem. This is what I love about Stewart's software, Transparent Choice, because it addresses this problem specifically. It actually addresses a lot of the problems we're going to talk about today. So this is where all of you come in. This is where the PMO leader is hired, or project manager is told, poof, you're now a PMO leader. Go fix this problem. And here we come to save the day. And what happens? All right, PMO leaders hired, they're pulled into the role. They're told everything's a hot mess. In fact, we get called in this way a lot because we have a fabulous consulting practice. And we come in and the business leaders say, project management's broken. Go fix project management. And do it by setting up a PMO. Now, when we come in, we don't see these kind of statistics because we know why these things are happening. But usually we come in a rescue mode because this is the kind of problem people are experiencing. 68% of stakeholders perceive their PMOs to be bureaucratic. Absolutely. And I'll show you exactly why that is in a moment. And here's something scary. 50% of PMOs that are ever attempted actually become operational. They actually 50% fail to launch. So half of the PMOs tried, never get off the ground and produce any results. And of the half that make it through that first round, half of those close, and it's actually getting worse than 3 years. It's getting closer to 2. So I guess the good news is they're failing faster, but what that actually tells me is not that they're failing faster, it's that their executives have become less patient and they're not willing to wait as long as they used to be to see results. And in fact, I know a lot of cases where they don't even have a year. In fact, our entire Impact Engine system implementation program is a continuous value delivery approach to PMO value, so that you're delivering value every 3 months, as opposed to, working on it for a year behind the scenes. And then by the time you actually deliver something, people have moved on, they've run out of patience, or they're working around you. So here's what I want to tell you that you need to really pay attention to. And that is the typical guidance on PMOs doesn't work, or these results would be better. If these are the typical results, that's because of the typical guidance. And when I say typical guidance, what do you think I mean? What do you think I mean when I say typical guidance?
This is your cue to jump into chat, folks.
Yep. I'll show you. How many have used this today? Say yes in the chat, or heck yeah, or yeah, I live by it. If any of you have used this today, I use it every single day, And it's awesome for a lot of things. I even went on ChatGPT and said, what's the purpose of a PMO? And I almost cried. I almost cried when I got the answer because it's based on data from a couple of years ago that is based on information from a couple decades ago that doesn't actually align with what the purpose of the PMO is. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to reshape how we talk about and think about the PMO and the role it can bring to the table. Here's the problem with Googling your way to a PMO. You're going to end up with piecing together a ton of different information from all over the internet. And unfortunately, a lot of it is bad advice. Now, when I was back in your shoes building my first PMO in 1999, I couldn't just Google my way to a PMO because you couldn't say, how to set up a PMO and get 8 million results like you can today. It might even be 9 million at this point. And now the problem with today is that you can Google how to set up a PMO and get 8 million results. And most of it's going to be bad advice. When I was trying to figure out how to set up a PMO back in the 90s, first of all, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I was just doing what made sense because my business leaders had a problem to solve. And so I actually had to, ask them what they were trying to accomplish so that I could figure out what to do. And I didn't have the luxury of, tons and tons of information, which I think was to my advantage, not disadvantage. But when I did try to get feedback or insights, here's what I found. A lot of what I was told to do was based on a heck of a lot of theory that never seemed to apply to my situation. It was a theoretical PMO that buried me in a bunch of templates and tools and process and stuff. And a good PMO looks like one that has 863 templates and processes that do all these things. And so I thought I was failing. So I kept trying to try all the things it said to do. And my executives were like, what are you doing? Stop. Because here's the secret. I will tell you in my experience, I have never met an executive that said, wait, hold on. Can you come back when you have 5 more templates for me to fill out? They're not going to do that. They don't care. They don't care about all that templates and process stuff. And I'll show you why in a moment. Or you could find yourself in a situation where you've hired a consultant to come in and help you. And I just got off of a call with one of our Impact Engine Accelerator Mastermind coaching students. And she said, well, unfortunately, they hired the consultant that's coming in with their cookie cutter approach. And we're already in trouble. I already see that this isn't going to work because they're not listening to us. They're not listening to our unique challenges and problems and the pain points. And they're just shoving what worked at another company in here. And we know it's not going to work and we're stuck. That's the problem with the typical consulting approach, which is come in and spend as much time as you can, creating as much work as possible and figuring out how to stay as long as possible. And when I decided to start my own company 10 years ago, I said, we're going to build a consulting practice that's the exact opposite. We're going to do everything we can to teach people to fish in the organization and get out of there with them set up, sustainable, and fully operational long-term without us, so that when we leave, everything doesn't fall apart. And we plan our exit strategy from the moment we get in there, because our success is not tied to the number of dollars we squeeze out of organizations. It's tied to the big impact results we're helping organizations make. But if you have these cookie cutter, pick it up and try it here again and again, you're going to end up with things that don't work. That's what the typical advice is giving us. Cookie cutter, lots of bad advice, and a bunch of theory that doesn't work. So if you want better results, you've got to stop following the typical advice if you want to stop getting the typical results. So let's talk about what that means. What does that actually mean for you? How do you drive this unstoppable business value and do what makes sense and put common sense into common practice in your organization? Well, it starts by taking a step up and out of where you've been focusing most of your energy and looking at why you were hired in the first place. Because you're in a very critical role in the organization and in a very important place, but many of you don't have your seat at the table and many of you don't even realize the opportunity in front of you. So we're going to explore that opportunity and figure out how to set you up to get there. The answers are all there in those scary statistics. All of it is there for you to take and for you to be able to grab your seat at the table willingly, and with them welcoming you to the table if you rethink your perspective about your role, why you were hired, and what value you bring to the table. And even PMI is in agreement on this. Even the templates, tools, and process people also will tell you that their own data suggests from their surveys that the alignment of the PMO to the goals of the organization is actually the key to driving strategy implementation, not in how much we perfect our templates, tools, and process. So I'll show you what that means in a minute. But I'd like you find that chat if you haven't. And I'd like you to put a yes, an amen, a heck yeah, a haha, that's me. If you hear any of these pain points in your organization, any of these challenges, if you've heard any of these, I want you to put it in the chat and let me know. So, any of you have executives complain that they don't know what's going on in the organization? I don't even know what projects are happening. I didn't know that project was taking place. Who's doing this? What's happening here? Yep, exactly. Yep, we hear that all the time. I've only gotten to number one and we were already getting people laughing, right? So complaint number one, yep. How about from the project manager's perspective or the staff doing the work? They're like, or the PMO, you might be saying, yeah, exactly. Stuart, you've heard it twice today. So many changes, we can't even plan work, right? We can't even plan the work that needs to get done because the changes are happening faster than we can put a plan together. How about this? Business leaders and stakeholders complaining that projects don't achieve their business benefits. Yep. All right, right. Okay. Well, guess what? Also, executives, every executive is saying projects take too long. They're costing too much. Like Jan, I love where you're going with this. If they measure it, exactly. If they measure it, and we'll talk about why measuring benefits isn't enough. Projects are taking too long. They're costing too much. Ownership and accountability are unclear. Put it in the chat if any of these are resonating with you. Every department has different priorities. Therefore, how do we possibly get everything done, right? Decisions take too long, which delays projects. I mean, Stuart, this literally is the foundation of your business.
I'm dying here, Laura. I'm just falling off my chair. This is the conversation I have several times every single day.
Every single day, right?
Every single day.
Resources are spread too thin. Who has a resource management problem, right? Okay, we're gonna talk specifically about that one in a minute. Project results are unpredictable. Every executive is like, okay, that's great, but when we do something over here, it's going to be completely different over here. And unfortunately, the solution that you've all been told is to make everything consistent and do a bunch of standards and then become the standard police. And that won't work either. And I know every single one of you has this challenge at some level. Every project is number one priority.
Should we go for a drum roll? There you go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, when you ask your executives, and listen, by the way, just so you know, I yell at executives all the time for this, and I'm trying to teach them too. But when you ask your executive, they roll out the new strategy, and you go ask them, hey, so how important is this compared to everything else you want me to do? And they say, well, it's really important, like everything else. And so what do? You go try to make everything important, and you start dividing the work up across all the teams, and everybody ends up with 1/16 of a critical resource on their project. Who's getting anything done with 1/16 of a person? No one. So everything grinds to a halt. Right? So this is the challenge that we have, is that we are stuck in this position of trying to respond and react to all of these symptoms, and we're not actually getting to the root cause problems. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. Now I'm going to take you we're going to dive into what we call the impact engine system. This is our approach to helping organizations build a PMO, a strategy delivery organization, elevate the one they have, or even rescue it so that it's driving really big value for the organization. And I'll show you exactly what I teach our students in just a moment. We're going to dive into doing what I call iterating your way to impact. We teach organizations how it's an agile implementation approach to value delivery, continuous value delivery, using what we know has been working over the last 25 years. So what we're going to dive into is a little bit of the stuff that I teach in the mindset stage of the impact engine system, and you'll see why this is changing the way organizations operate. Okay. So Stuart, this is going to look very familiar to you because this is the world that you live in every day, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So what's going on is let's go back up to the executives, because if you want to solve the problems, we've got to stop living in PMO and project management land. We've got to start at the top with the executives. We're going to take a typical strategy lifecycle and talk about what happens and why there are so many quote unquote gaps. So let's say strategy definition, strategy execution, strategy realization. Basic life cycle for what an organization goes through to create strategy and realize their strategy. And we'll align to that the typical project life cycle, initiative life cycle. I don't even have to say project. Now, remember, when I say project here, I don't mean waterfall. I don't mean agile, wagile, water scrumfall. I don't mean any of that. I actually mean all of it, because what we're talking about here is not an implementation methodology, but how projects are aligned to these parts of the strategy life cycle. Ideas are generated, projects are approved, and I know lots of stuff happens in there, but you get the idea. Projects are planned, projects are delivered, and then benefits are realized, but we can't stop there. We actually have to make sure that they have value, that they were worth doing in the first place. Here's where most of you live, in strategy execution world. This is the typical focus of PMOs, or agile transformation organizations, business transformation organizations, change management functions. Here's where most of you live. And so what most of you are doing is spending a lot of time fixing the problem you were hired to fix by training staff, creating processes, creating templates, implementing tools. Awesome. Some of you even did this in reverse order, and first thing you did was try to implement a tool. How'd that work out for you, if that was the first place you started? So what happens is this is where you're focused. But here's what's happening. When you're busy creating all of these templates and process, there's some other things going on in the organization. Excuse me. There's some other things going on in the organization before those projects are even starting. Well, everything is number one priority, right? We all laughed at that one, but we laughed because it's true. The strategy is not clear. We proved that with the 95% statistic. Resources are over allocated. Everybody complains they have a resource management problem, right? And managers are redirecting staff. Put in the chat if any of these are happening to you in your organization. But pay attention to where I'm showing the problem actually is. All of it, right? Of course, all of it. And by the way, those of you that are messaging, make sure you change it to everyone instead of just hosts and panelists so everybody can see your comments. Some of you are hilarious here. Everyone should see it. Okay, so, but there's more. Wait, there's more problems that we need to address. Because in the strategy realization stage, we have problems that our executives are complaining about as well. Projects don't meet their goals. They cost more than the benefits. Oh, someone said, Jan, didn't you say if anybody's actually measuring value? Nobody's actually measuring value. And what happens is we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that's the problem. We keep making the same mistakes and nothing gets better. But then your executives come and they say, okay, but I need your help, PMO leader. Can you go fix this for me? And everything's broken. And if we don't fix it, you're in trouble. So here's what we do. We start shoving more templates and tools and process and training and templates and tools and process and training at the problem we think we have. But that's just it. That's the problem we think we have. But what you don't realize is that only about 20% of your value to the organization can be found in that space. Because no matter how many templates, tools, and process you shove at it, we still have the same problems. Those problems are not fixed by any of your templates and tools and process in the strategy execution space. So what's important to understand for you as a PMO leader is that your value is not tied to the quantity of stuff that you create, but the impact you help the organization make, right? It's not about the stuff. It's not about the templates, tools, and process. And I'm not saying never have them, but I'll show you how to use them for good instead of evil in this process, because there's ways to use them to help enable and empower, as opposed to what many of you hear, which is you're slowing things down. So there is an actual clear path to success, and I'm going to show you how to take full advantage of that in the coming slides. Just remember that most of the value you can contribute as a PMO isn't even in the execution stage. That's the 20%. The rest of it is found in fixing problems beyond that. Your usual focus of execution is not solving the problems your business leaders have. That's why we can't close the strategy to execution gap in organizations. The business has gaps in places you haven't been involved traditionally, or you've tried to get involved, or they don't even have you at the table, or you've been so busy with your templates, tools, and process, you haven't even had time to look at the real challenges going on and where you can help. So your path to success is going to be in addressing the root causes of each of the pain points, these symptoms that you're experiencing, so you can actually solve the right problems. And I'm going to walk you through an example that I know Stuart's going to make you laugh because you see this probably every day. Okay, very simple root cause analysis here. And you can do this to any of the problems that you have, all right? Typical complaint: projects are taking too long and costing too much. Who gets the blame? Somebody put in chat who gets the blame for that when the projects are taking too long, costing too much. Who's the first to be blamed? I know you're there in the chat. Where are you?
There we go.
Yep.
Kelvin,
Yep.
well done, Kelvin.
Kelvin's like, yep, project manager. Absolutely. The project manager's fault. It's always the project manager's fault. They're not managing the projects well. Of course. Obviously, it's them. Well, I would like to challenge that and ask a few more questions. So when I go to the project managers and say, hey, what's going on here? They'll say, well, the project team members never get anything to us on time. They make a commitment and then they blow that out of the water every single time. So when you ask the project team members what's going on, what do they tell you? Well, new projects keep getting added to my plate. I don't have enough capacity to do all the work that keeps adding to my plate. And this is where most of us conclude we have a resource management problem. But here's the thing. You don't actually have a resource management problem. What you have is what you have is a shoving 10 pounds of projects in a 5-pound bag problem. That's the problem you actually have. What you have is not enough resources. What you have is more projects than staff to do them. The 842 projects you want to get done with 16 staff is the problem. It's not a resource management problem. There's nothing wrong with these poor resources. Now, you might need help organizing them and allocating them, but the fact that they're allocated 425% is the problem, which is not a resource management problem. It is actually a portfolio prioritization problem. This is the underlying root cause. So when we try and fix the symptom of training project managers, yelling at the teams, and all these other things, being the squeakiest wheel, saying that our problem is we can't utilize resources, going to beg our executives for more people, it's actually because we don't have good prioritization. Instead of starting the projects when we actually have the people to do them, we fire the starting gun on every single project the first day of the fiscal year, and everything grinds to a halt. Everyone ends up with 1/16 of a critical resource on their project. So the answer is actually to create a portfolio and prioritization and governance model that protects the strategy and helps ensure that it gets delivered and that the most important things in the organization are focused on first. And if you're not familiar with transparent choice, nobody does this as well as they do. This, we tell our clients and our students all the time, and we have a very special relationship with Stuart because we know that they're the best at this. This is the thing that they do that nobody else can do quite this way. And it's because, and the reason we love it and recommend it all the time is because this is one of the biggest problems that organizations face. When everything is important, nothing is important. That's the future of organizations, is solving. There are other problems to solve, and I'm going to give you some examples, but that's one of the biggest. We always have our students start there, because if they don't have that, nothing else they do matters. All of it will be wasted effort and energy, templates, tools, and processing things, because we don't have that underlying problem addressed. So when you have this shoving 10 pounds of projects in a 5-pound bag problem, what you really have is more projects than the staff to do them, not enough staff to do the projects. And that whole dynamic changes when we shift the order. Resources pulled in too many directions. Yeah, also a prioritization problem. Success criteria for projects unclear because nobody actually took the time to evaluate what success looks like right up front. Conflicting priorities causing confusion, still a prioritization problem. Strategy is unclear, and therefore we haven't aligned our work to that strategy. I mean, Stuart, you're like, yes, preaching, right? You know?
I'm really struggling to keep quiet, Laura, but I'm going to keep quiet.
I know you are. We're almost there.
You can see me, I'm kind of shifting around.
Yes, I know. He's like, I can't stand it. Yes. And this is what we do, and this is what we help people do. And this is, I mean, this is a very emotional thing for us because both Stuart and I, and the people that are close to us in our tribe, our family, in this community, care very deeply about solving these problems because we cannot stand watching people suffer. And this is the kind of suffering that not just you PMO leaders are experiencing, but your executives and your teams. My gosh, the poor project managers and the staff, they're getting the worst of it. And it's so hard to watch. We can't stand it, which is why all of this, is happening, right?
100%.
Yeah. So, and business leaders are not aligned. Yes, Jen, and bottom line bullet being the root cause of all of them. Right. Exactly. So how can you help? Your role is to help business leaders realize their business strategy with the highest possible return on investment by driving better business outcomes instead of simply perfecting outputs. So I'm going to give you some very specific examples that we teach our students how to do inside the Impact Engine system. And we're going to go through some of these ways that they're iterating their way to impact so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to go back to those 3 stages so we can walk through some very purposeful examples. And Stuart, this is the place you live the most, which is actually setting projects up for success. So let's talk about a few of these things we can do to actually set these projects up for success. So we're not playing the game of blaming the project manager when they're actually not the problem at all. So the first one, create strategic alignment. Now, in the best case scenario, you're in an organization where you do something mind-blowingly crazy by actually deriving your projects from the strategy. So if we look at the strategy at the top level, what should come from that is not projects actually, but it's your products and services, the ways you deliver value for the organization. That's what comes first. And then from that is all of the portfolios and programs and projects that are to enable those products and services to the market. Right? It's either the change projects to create them or the change projects to improve them. But the whole idea is projects are not the end, they are the means. They are the means of getting good products and services out the door to deliver value to the market, to whoever the customer base is. So when you're hearing people say, oh, we do product management, we don't need to do project management, they're 2 totally different things and with different goals. And I know, Stuart, you're like, go ahead, say it. It's killing you. That's what people don't understand is that they are not the same thing. It's not one or the other. You actually need both to do things well. And we do that in our own business. We have product and service development and definition and design. And then we say, great, now we need a project to go create this thing we just designed. Great, now we need to measure that those products are actually delivering the value in the marketplace long after the project is over. And the PMO should be strategically positioned to play in both spaces. Now, you could be in an organization where things are magically all defined the way they're supposed to be, but if not, then it's your job to help close that gap between the strategy and the places where you are playing a game, which is in the programs and the projects, and hopefully eventually into the portfolios and the products and services. So we have to close that gap in alignment, and we'll talk about ways you can do that in the strategy realization stage as well. If you show value, if you show how you're helping the organization move the needle, they will invite you into those conversations. But you do not earn your seat there by just saying, I should be there. You cannot earn your seat there by trying to sell them on the value of the PMO. You have to actually deliver some meaningful results and provide information to them that helps drive that strategy delivery. So we'll walk through several examples. One really important one is strategic alignment. Once you understand what the strategy is and you've set that strategy up for success by, I don't know, asking what the purpose is, why, getting a business case and clearly saying what it is we're trying to accomplish, then you can feed that into portfolio prioritization. but you have to know you have to know what the strategy is to even do that well. And that's part of what Stewart software is super helpful with. You have to get clear outcomes and greater focus, and then align people and their work to that strategy, and then give them the prioritization they need to know what they should be talking about. If you want to fix resource utilization problems, resource management problems, you must address portfolio prioritization. This, then more than anything else, will fix that problem. Because what you do then is you say, we're going to actually organize our people to the work that we have. And we align that with single task focus and staggering. Here's a crazy idea. How about we actually start projects when we have the people to do them? I mean,
you're getting radical here, Laura.
No.
Think of them as being deliverable? What are you crazy?
That's the problem we have. Most people, when the fiscal year starts, everybody gets their budget and everything happens all at once. And that's why the whole organization comes to a crawl. And then stressed out managers see no progress being made, and they start shoving every empty space with work. And what happens is you have a whole lot of people running around being very busy, but nobody's actually getting to those critical business outcomes, because everybody looks very busy, but nobody's really focused. Busy does not equal productive. Busy actually gets in the way of productive. If you want to get big results, you have to stop with busy and focus on getting the business outcomes. We do this by creating an environment where you can have a single task focus and stagger projects to only take place when you have the people to do them. You know what makes it really easy to do? Having clear strategic alignment and having your portfolio prioritized. Because when you have those, you can list everything out in priority order, and you can staff the projects according to the priority and make sure those get done. And then everything below the line where you stop having resources, it's not that it doesn't happen. It's just waited to start. It waits to start till you actually have people available to do the work. Crazy idea, I know, but you'll actually get more done in a year across your portfolio if you do this kind of work. And our dear friend, Mike Hannon, wrote the book on this, right? So you can, I don't know if you want to look up his book and put it in the chat for everybody, but
I will do that.
Mike's book is amazing on this. And what it actually does is explain a lot of these techniques, and we actually teach them in our Impact Engine system and the Impact Accelerator Mastermind. In fact, we have all kinds of top industry thought leaders coming in and talking to our coaching students in our mastermind program, sharing these exactly how you do it techniques with our students so that they can apply them in their organizations. And another thing that we can do to set the whole strategy up for success is actually ask a simple question. What does success look like, right? If you do not have a business case for every single initiative that you're undertaking, how in the world do you know what success looks like? If you are not clearly defining success criteria, then you're not setting that project up for success. And let me be clear, when I say success criteria, I do not mean on time, on scope, on budget. And I'll talk to you about why this is important in a moment. What you're defining here is business success. You want to think and act like a business leader. You want your seat at the table. Stop thinking like a project manager and start thinking like a business leader. Business leaders think in terms of value, return on investment, and outcomes, not in terms of templates, tools, process, triple constraint, and EVM. And I'll talk to you more about that now. Let's talk a little bit about what happens in the execution space, because this is the place we're usually geeking out. And instead, I want you thinking about accelerating value delivery. Instead of focusing on where you can only do about 20% of your value and templates and tools and process. And listen, I'm not saying don't have them. I'm saying that we need to streamline and optimize them so that they are accelerating value delivery, not slowing it down. Every template and tool and step in the process that you create, you must ask yourself, how is this enabling getting to the business outcomes? For example, a business case with clear success criteria, super important to accelerating getting to the outcomes. Because if you don't have that, nobody knows why they're doing what they're doing. They're in the 95% that don't understand the strategy. So we have to make sure that we're very clearly focused on providing the right sized resources that will help enable getting to those results faster. So streamline process and ask yourself, is this going to make things move faster or slow it down? I would argue a business case, a charter, a project schedule are accelerators, not slowing it down, right? But a 45-page status report, not an accelerator, right? So we need to look at how we streamline and optimize and simplify and exactly what things we should focus on to speed things up, because your job, I'm going to say it again, is to help the organization achieve a higher return on investment for the strategy as quickly as possible. The longer something takes to do, the less value it has to the organization, because it'll cost more, our market opportunities will be missed, and it will drain resources from other strategic priorities. So we have to figure out how to do things quickly, which means we have to spend time educating our stakeholders so that they understand what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and why it matters. Here's the thing. One of the problems we have in this space is that we spend a lot of time trying to educate people on project management and why don't they get it and why don't they understand. Instead of doing that, we have to flip the whole script and help educate them on how they can accelerate the value delivery lifecycle and their role in doing that. One example, and there's so many of these if we had, I only need like a few more weeks, Stuart, to like go through all the examples. But for example, your sponsors. They're slowing things down because nobody's actually trained them on how to be a good sponsor. Nobody's born a good sponsor. They have to learn it along the way or they don't. So if you want a good sponsor, educate them on how to be a good sponsor and what's expected of them. And how can you align, how can they help you align people and work to the strategy so everybody understands the business outcomes they're driving and the results that they're trying to get to. And when you were thinking about your communication, instead of giving them all the information you possibly could because you have it, get very laser focused on any meetings, reports, information, communication, being laser focused on driving actions and decisions to get to better business results faster. An example of this, never send an email to anyone that just says FYI with a 45 email thread underneath it. Nobody's reading it. Nobody cares, and they have no idea what you want them to do. If you're having problems with your sponsor, getting stuck on page 5 of a status report on some data point in the bottom right corner that nobody really cares about, and now you have to have another meeting and then a meeting before the other meeting and then another meeting just to get a decision, that's on you for putting that in front of them. Instead, why don't we simplify it to here's what we need, here's the information you need to make a decision, here's the decision that needs to be made, the effect of that decision, let's get it done and move on. It can be done in 15 minutes, not 45 meetings, right? So look for places to do that. And then in strategy realization, your job is to enable business value. The most important things you want to remember here are, it's not enough to define success by on time, on scope, on budget. When you do that, for example, if you're using EVM, I want you to be very clear that earned value management does not actually measure value. It measures a lot of time spent and a lot of money spent, and we hope we got some deliverables from that, and we double hope that those deliverables actually turned into some kind of value created for the organization. But hope isn't a strategy, and that's not a way to measure value. We must look for better metrics like return on investment. And every single one of your executives, I don't care what organization you work in, they use the term ROI. Even all the nonprofits we work in, they use it. But it's maybe return for a mission, right? It's mission focused. Return doesn't have to always equal dollars.
The return, exactly. Return on investment does not necessarily just mean dollars. In fact, usually it doesn't just mean dollars.
Exactly. Now, one thing you want to think about as a PMO leader is how you measure your own value. And if you're, now I meet PMO leaders all the time. I manage we have a portfolio of $50 million or $500 million of budget. All you're telling me is how much you're costing the organization, not how much value you're driving. Nobody cares about how much money you're spending. They care about what you're doing with that money to drive a better impact. You must measure things that actually matter. And it is your fiduciary responsibility as the investment manager. That's right. You are an investment manager. You are responsible for taking their investment and creating a return for that. That is your role in organizations. You're not a cost center. You're not a cost engine. You're an impact engine. You must measure impact you're creating for the organization. And when you do, nobody will ever question your value, ever. Remember that project management is the means to the end. And if you want to bring real value to the organization, you must look at project management and all the process and the tools as the means, and shift your focus from perfecting the means, perfecting those outputs, to driving better business outcomes. And when you do these things, you will become what we call the strategy navigator for an organization. You become the one that is the only one that can help take that whole strategy, all those brilliant ideas, and turn them into an incredible return on investment for the organization. That's the value you bring to the table. And that's our mission. That's what Stuart and I have partnered together on countless opportunities, the summit, the podcast, these things, to make sure that all of you understand that we want your role to be the strategy navigator in the organization. And we know exactly what it takes to get there. So with that said, I just want to leave you with this one thought. Just remember that project management is not the end game. Project management is simply the process that we use to drive business results. And the PMO is the engine that generates that impact for an organization. So thank you so much, Stuart, for allowing me to share all of this with your audience. I do want to say that if any of you are interested in joining us, we have an incredible opportunity for you to join us and work together to help you create an impact engine for your organization. We've been helping students and clients do this for a decade, and it works 100% of the time. You do the work, you'll see the results. So welcome to your seat at the table. It's time for you to take it and join us.
And this would be a great time, Laura, for me to just jump in and say, look, we don't take any money from Laura. We don't do anything like that, right? But I've seen this work so often and so predictably that we are offering everyone on this call today, everyone who signed up, we are offering to pay for your attendance to the Impact Engine system program. You know, if you got to buy our software, tough, right? But you come along, you buy our software, and we will pay for you to go on that program, because we have seen the direct link between people attending that program and them having roaring success as PMO leaders in their organizations. And that's what we want, right? We want our customers to be successful. I don't want to sell you software. I want you to be successful, right? So if you are interested in Laura's program, come talk to us as well, right? So let's see if the software is a fit. If you end up buying the software, we will pay for you to go on the program. There's a whole bunch of terms and conditions that go with that. So anyone that's interested, I'll share the T's and C's. But fundamentally, you know, this is like getting that little toy in your cereal, right? That free toy, but it's loads better, right?
Little bonus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just going through this, I have got sticky notes all over my desk, right? So you know, we're talking. I love the things you said. So the ability to help your organization align and manage the strategy and the priorities will mean that your organization will thrive, right? So think about this. If you're working for a government agency, how many government agencies thrive?
Right.
It'd be kind of cool if you were part of the reason that your government agency thrived or your business really took off. And that is the impact you can have. It really is. We've seen it. We've done it, right? I love the, you know, inherited wisdom doesn't work. Absolutely. Google's great for a load of things, but it is not, right? People out there who tell you how to do things online, they are full of good intentions, but that doesn't mean they're right. And, you know, there is research, there are tried and true methods and processes, and that's what you've heard today, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant. What else did I get? Not a cost center, it's an impact engine, right? Right. It's not about the outputs, it's not about the volume, it's about the impact. That is all that matters, the only thing that matters. So get out and do it. Go check out Laura's system. Reach out to us, and if you want to learn about how to do prioritization well, there are heaps of free resources on our website that you can go and access, and you can download and read. There are ebooks, there are webinars by world-class decision scientists. There's all kinds of stuff in there that you can access. And we give that stuff away for the same reason that Laura did the session today, because we passionately want to make a difference, right? So this stuff, you can have it, you can use it, it's free, whether or not you ever buy software from us. Laura, there weren't a load of questions. I think people are just completely blown away. I know that there are a couple of people on here who are at the early stage of establishing PMOs. You guys in particular, you know who I'm talking about, because I've spoken to you in the last couple of weeks. You have to go and look at this and see if you can beg, steal, borrow the budget to do this. It really will make that big a difference.
Well,
Excellent.
yeah, and I highly recommend, listen, we've had several of our clients use transparent choice. And in fact, here's the thing with Stuart and his organization that I want to help you understand. They're different than the typical software organization. I think of Stuart as a thought leader in this space first, and the owner of a software company second. And what I mean by that is, he's come in and talked to my coaching students who are trying to learn how to do prioritization. And he's shared all this expertise with them on how to do portfolio prioritization. And he's my go-to expert on that. And then we have our pal Mike Hannon come in and say, okay, now you need to learn how to do the magic of, once you prioritize that portfolio, how do you best stagger and organize and use all these portfolio accelerating techniques to then take it from there. So I can tell you that I've spent a long time in this space, and Stuart and his team are very unique in what they're trying to do, how they're trying to do it. And we've been working together for years. For those that joined late, he took me on a punt and took my husband and I on a on a whole trip to in Cambridge. We went, spent time together and just, figured out how we can support changing the world together. Frankly, that's what this is all about. We do what we do because we know what it's like to be you. We know what it's like to be in your shoes. We know the challenges you experience, and there is a better way. Have you ever felt like that? If you were trying to do a family trip with your family and you're like, but I know project management, I know how to plan the heck out of this thing, and nobody's listening to me, right? It's like so frustrating because you're like, you see a better way and you see all this going crazy. And you're like, but if we had just planned this, it'd be better, right? So that's how we feel about all this. We see executive struggle. We see PMO leaders with tears in their eyes, so frustrated. We see the opportunities that you all have in front of you, but you don't have the tools to get there. And that's what the Impact Engine system is all about. That's what Transparent Choice is about, is helping you have the tools you need to be successful and get that seat at the table. That's what we want for you, because that's when organizations can change the world. They need you to do it.
Brilliant. Well done, Laura. You can all see how enthusiastic we both are. I feel a little bit like Steve Ballmer. Have you ever seen the video Steve Ballmer did? Was it Windows 3 when they launched it? And he did this whole spoof of a double glazing sales advert. Windows 3 and you get, right?
Yes. Wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more. You don't get one, not two, but
right.
Right, yeah.
Well, but it's just, it comes from our enthusiasm to really support the people in this space. Listen, when I was in the role of PMO leader in 1999, we were in the middle of the dot-com craziness. We were doing bleeding edge things in this company. My CEO was 27. Nobody had any idea what they were doing. I was the herder of cat herders. It was insane. And I did not have the kinds of things available to me to support me on this journey. So I have tons of battle scars to prove it. And I'm trying to make sure that nobody else has to go through the tough lessons. Not everybody has to learn everything the hard way. Please help you make it a lot easier.
So we will, after this, send out a recording of the session. It might take us a day or two to get it all edited down. Laura, can we share the slides? You happy with that?
Yeah. I'll make some, my team will put something together so you can.
Excellent. And I will put, and we will include details of this special offer for the very special people who joined us today. Come sign up and get your free seat, your free access to the Impact Engine system.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. So definitely take advantage of that if you, because sometimes organizations will have software money, but they won't know how to ask for this implementation program. And so if you're in a position where you have the software money, then this can just, you don't even have to pay for it because you get the software and then Stuart's going to pay for it. That's how much he believes in your success, which is a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. That's the motivation, right? We want you to succeed. That's it. That's the end.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. On that note, oh, do you get PDUs?
Absolutely. And I'm going to send all of you the link to our website where we give you all the PDU instructions that you need. I think this is it. Let me double check. Where you can get all the PDU instructions on how to, and actually, by the way, if you're looking for PDUs, Deborah, I know you've been in my community. There's a lot of ways for you to get PDUs. In fact, we show you how to get PDUs for the podcast, for any live webinars we do, because they count as live training. So yeah, you can go right to pmostrategies.com/PDUs, and we have instructions that walk you through all of the different categories of PDUs and how to actually submit for each one of them. So you bet. And like 190 episodes of the podcast are all PDU worthy. So definitely go check that out as well.
Excellent. Now, look, guys, we are 10 minutes over. Laura and I will stick around for a little while longer if you want us to. But so bang in any more questions or any more observations or comments. But I do know that some of you will need to disappear. Thank you very much for joining, especially those of you who are in Asia and on funny time zones compared to this talk. So thank you for making the time and turning up. And those of you who didn't and are watching the recording, shame on you. You missed it. You missed your chance. You missed your chance to ask Laura questions. But thank you all very much for taking time, and I hope to talk to a bunch of you very soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all so very much. So wonderful to see you through. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Definitely check out the Impact Engine system. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We have a chat bubble right on our page. You can just go check out. You can talk to our team about any questions you have. We're here to support you every step of your journey. So thank you so much. It's an honor to serve all of you. Go make a bigger impact today.